best. It's Tuesday here on The Story, and tonight we're talking about the Halt Fentanyl Act in Congress. It appears poised for passage. So why did 4 Oregon lawmakers vote against it? Plus, it's a story that's gone viral online. A middle school teacher defying her district, refusing to take down 2 posters in her classroom. One talks about values, the other, a message that everyone is welcome. A one-on-one interview with her is coming up. But first, we're talking about book bans. The contentious topic is once again up for debate in Salem. And this time, let's just say there are some theatrics involved. It's our big story tonight. Well, it certainly was an interesting day on the House floor in Salem yesterday morning when Republican Representative Dwayne Juncker did this.
From page 265, she guided me on my back and pulled on the bottom of my briefs. I pushed them over my knees and feet and was completely naked.
Well, there is more to that sentence, but you get the picture. Representative Juncker claims he was reading a passage from a book in a school library in Grants Pass. It was sent to him by a concerned parent, he says, who wants the book removed. The book is called The Haters, and Representative Juncker says the Three Rivers School District in Grants Pass decided to keep it in the library. While Representative Juncker was reading that on the floor of Oregon's House chamber, his fellow Republican Representative Kevin Mannix then did this.
I think the representative's presentation is lascivious and obscene, and I object to it.
Juncker was allowed to continue reading until Mannix objected a second time, and then he stopped. It was a little bit of a performance, if you will, with Juncker arguing that if the text was not appropriate to read aloud on the House floor, it should not be allowed in schools. Now, this is a tactic we've seen play out in other public meetings, especially school boards, by people who want to ban books. After all, if the language is too inappropriate for a meeting, how could it be suitable for children?
What is on the shelves in our schools today does not meet the standards for this chamber. Our families, our students deserve to serve and to go to school and have libraries that are appropriate to their age.
Republicans are trying to stop the passage of Senate Bill 1098. It would ban what the Democratic sponsors call discriminatory book bans. Data shows that the majority of books banned from schools and libraries are either by or about people of color or the LGBTQ+ community. And the bill would institute certain requirements that have to be met before a book can be removed. Now, if this all sounds familiar to you, it's because a similar bill was introduced last session but never made it over the finish line. The sponsor last year and this year is Senator Lou Frederick, a Democrat who represents North and Northeast Portland.
We were only an hour and a half from getting it through the last time, and that was just because of timing. But it was also what I'm trying to do here is to basically free up the libraries and the schools to deal with more important issues, quite frankly, rather than having to spend their time fighting over a culture war kind of thing. Instead, to say, no, these are things that we don't need to deal with. You have parameters. You cannot discriminate. If you are a book that's dealing with that cannot discriminate. But it doesn't say that you can't determine whether a particular book can be in an area or is for a certain age group.
But Republicans say they don't want kids exposed to things they think are inappropriate in schools, and they want school districts to be able to decide the rules themselves, not the state.
A lot of stuff gets hidden under all sorts of political discussions. We've got, I think I mentioned I got Toni Morrison's book. It was mentioned twice in committee as one that would possibly be banned. And as a Nobel Prize winning author, also as a Pulitzer Prize, she's a black woman. The very definition of a book that they would say, if you're trying to take this out, this might be racial. And yet, in the first, 20 pages, you find things that you don't really want to read. You don't want children to read. I can't read them here.
The bill passed out of committee yesterday, and it has hundreds of people who testified in support. One of them is a librarian in a district on the Oregon coast, dealing with a book ban issue of her own right now. Last week, the Sayusla School District in Florence banned the book Flamer by Mike Corrado. The book is about a Filipino boy who goes to Boy Scout camp and deals with things like bullying, suicidal thoughts, religion, and his sexual orientation. It's a book we've seen challenged in several school districts in Oregon in the past few years. In the Sayusla district, a student challenged the book, which was only in the high school library. The book was looked at by a review committee, who, along with the school's principal, recommended the book stay in the library. But the school board decided to ban it anyway. Jennifer McKenzie, the district's teacher librarian, says that was a disappointing decision, especially for her district.
So the panel determined that, the book really represented voices that we seek to see in our collection. And then also the panel recognized the importance of the book in serving as a suicide prevention story, because we're out here in Lane County. And Lane County has some of the highest suicide rates in the entire state of Oregon. So we're in this hot pocket, sadly, of suicide. And we've had students in our school system since I've been here in the last 5 years who have committed suicide. So that played into the panel's decision as well, that this book could serve students who are potentially considering suicide. And one comment from our district mental health provider, she said that, books are often, when she has to see students who are experiencing suicidal ideation, that books are their number one go-to mechanism for coping.
Now, we talked with a member of the review panel tasked with reading the book and making a recommendation to the school board about whether it should stay. Ned Hickson is a local author and retired journalist in the city of Florence. He says the panel, which included a parent, a pastor, a Boy Scout leader, and others from the community, was on the fence about keeping the book initially. But after a 4-hour discussion, they decided that it should stay.
So when we really got down to it, we realized this book is not just about a student who's questioning their sexuality. It also covers racism. It covers body shaming. It covers dysfunctional family life. There are a lot of kids who are not are questioning their sexuality who could relate to many of the other aspects that this character is facing in their life, including a crisis of faith. And we felt ultimately that this book was more than just about one particular thing, and that the main reason the book was written was to help a teen considering suicide, to help persuade them against that. And my question at our meeting was, if you knew this book could save your child's life, would you still consider objecting to keeping it on the shelf for the good of the community? Would you still take it off? And so once we kind of started looking at it that way, we realized that this book is important to have on the shelf.
But last week, as we said, the school board decided to remove it anyway. Some board members said they like the book's message, just not its language.
I don't believe it belongs in the collection. I believe that we need to have a higher standard for the language and the content that is in the book.
I believe the sexual content and the language being used in the book is unacceptable. There's over 20 words in there that, yes, some kids probably speak those words, but we as adults should not condone it.
But the decision was not unanimous. The board vice chair spoke against banning the book, especially in light of the fact that the school's principal and the review committee approved it.
To close the doors and be someone up here that says this is okay for us to go over our professional people, to go over our teachers, to go over our admin, to go over a committee that was chosen from very professional people in our community and make a decision because we're what? Elected officials, because we're what? Make a decision that takes a book off the shelf that could help somebody or save someone's life. I can't even express how angry that makes me that we would even think about making that kind of a decision.
But in the end, the school board voted 4-3 to remove the book. So as of now, it's off the shelf in the Sayusla district. But we want to know what you think. Should the state be setting standards for book bans, or should it be left up to individual districts? It's certainly a point of controversy across the state. So email us at thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Or, as always, you can hit us up on social media. We love to hear from you. Now, while we're on the topic of controversy in classrooms, there's a story that's getting national attention in the state of Idaho. Take a look. A 6th grade teacher was ordered to remove these 2 posters from her classroom. One that lists values and the other that says everyone is welcome here. The district says they go against a policy of displaying personal opinions. The teacher says she took them down the day she was told to. But after a few days, after not feeling right about what she did, she put them back up. But still, her district says she has until the end of the year to find alternatives that they approve or take them down. If not, she could risk losing her job. That teacher, Sarah Ainama, recently sat down for a one-on-one interview with our affiliate in Boise, and we think their conversation is worth your time.
They told me that they were in violation of district policy because in today's political environment, they're considered a personal opinion.
Did they say somebody complained about them?
No. I asked if anyone had complained about them, and they said no. We just want to protect you from that if that were to happen.
In this political environment?
Mm-hmm.
That is not acceptable.
Yeah, I was told a couple things. That everyone is welcome here is not something that everybody believes. So that's what makes it a personal opinion.
You were told this?
Mm-hmm.
That not everybody believes everyone is welcome?
Right.
Okay. And who told you this? Who was the one saying that not everyone believes this?
My building administration and district personnel.
Face to face, they told you this?
Mm-hmm.
What was your response to that?
Because I was told to take it down by the end of the day, I did so. And the following few days, I just was so unsettled by it. And so I went back into my classroom and put it back up. And I emailed my principal and said, I don't agree. I don't agree that this is a personal opinion. I feel like this is the basis of public education.
And what was the response to that?
They came to talk to me and again asked me to take it down. And I said, I'm not interested in taking it down.
That's when the district higher-ups got involved. In an email exchange with Chief Academic Officer Marcus Myers, he highlighted the section of district policy he says Sarah Sines violated, including the advancement of individual beliefs and district facilities should be content neutral. But more specifically, Myers pointed to Idaho Code, the Dignity and Non-Discrimination in Public Education Act, which says district employees and students shall respect the dignity of others and acknowledge the right of others to express differing opinions.
And they're saying that putting up a poster that says everyone is welcome is a violation of that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because everyone is welcome here, especially since the poster emphasizes in regards to skin color with the images of the hands, that is considered something that people have differing views on.
And the differing view would be racist?
I mean, I can't even wrap my head around what other differing view of it would be. I mean, except for something that's exclusionary. So everyone is welcome here really isn't a personal statement, it's non-discrimination. It's verbatim on our Explorer Way posters.
That's true. Sarah says these posters, made by the middle school principals and put up in every classroom, lay out what it means to be a Lewis and Clark explorer, welcome others, and embrace diversity. Isn't everyone is welcome here the same thing?
It is welcoming others and it is embracing diversity. And these are the students that are in our community. I just feel like, as a teacher, and I feel like probably a lot of teachers share this sentiment, I would do anything to protect my students. I love all of them unconditionally. We protect them from danger. Quite literally would take a bullet for these students. And this is the one small thing that I feel like I can do to speak out against this and stand up for them to protect them from being affected by racist sentiments affecting their classroom. I find it hard to grapple with the fact that the reason why this poster needs to come down is because there are people outside of our school that disagree with it.
Now, based on the kind of comments we've seen online about this story, I am sure you have thoughts you'd like to share with us about this. So email us, thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Well, coming up next on The Story, a rare piece of bipartisan legislation in Washington, D.C. would crack down on drug dealers selling copycat fentanyl on the streets. But get this, half of Oregon's congressional delegation voted no on the bill. We'll explain why and what's next for the Halt Fentanyl Act when The Story returns. And to our nation's capital now, where a bill known as the Halt Fentanyl Act appears poised to pass Congress and be sent to the president's desk. The bill would permanently list fentanyl analogs, or copycat drugs, often sold by traffickers, as Schedule I controlled substances. That's the designation for the most dangerous drugs. Those drugs had already been temporarily placed on the list in 2018, but that was set to expire at the end of this month. Now, drugs on that Schedule I list mandate severe prison sentences, and according to the Congressional Budget Office, this bill would lead to an increase in criminal convictions for selling fentanyl-related substances. Right now, under Schedule I, if someone is caught trafficking 10 grams of a fentanyl analog, they would receive a minimum prison sentence of 5 years. Someone caught with 100 grams of the same drug would get a minimum of 10 years. But the Halt Fentanyl Act would lower those thresholds. Even a trace amount of fentanyl analog within a 10-gram sample would trigger the 5-year mandatory minimum sentence. That's according to the New York Times. Now, some have criticized the broad wording of the bill, alleging it will block research into some of these fentanyl analogs. Nonetheless, the bill passed the Senate on Friday on an 84-16 vote. All of the no votes came from Democrats, and now it heads to the House, where a similar version of the bill already passed with significant bipartisan support. The next bill will be for the House to vote on, the updated Senate bill, and if it passes there, it heads to President Trump. And considering the fentanyl crisis here in Oregon, you might be thinking that our congressional delegation would be thrilled with a fentanyl crackdown. Well, think again. Both Senators Ron Wyden and Jeff Merkley voted against the Halt Fentanyl Act. And when it comes to similar bills in the House that was voted on early last month, 4 of our 6 representatives voted yes, with Reps Bonamici and Dexter voting no. We gave each of the no voting members of Congress a day and a half to send us a statement on why they voted no, and 3 of the 4 answered us. Representative Bonamici did not. Senator Wyden noted the bill does nothing to address root causes of addiction and wrote that war on drugs approach of just criminalizing addiction with mandatory one-size-fits-all minimum sentences failed for decades to reduce drug use. Reusing a scheme that's proven itself outdated would be like displaying a Model T at a new car show. His colleague in the Senate, Jeff Merkley, told us to tackle the flow of fentanyl in our communities, we need effective solutions, and the Halt Fentanyl Act falls woefully short of that goal. I voted against this bill because it perpetuates many of the harms of the war on drugs by imposing mandatory minimums and ignores public health tools to address this crisis. And finally, from Rep. Dexter, addiction is a public health crisis, not a crime to be punished. We need solutions that treat it as such. I voted against the Halt Fentanyl Act because it fails to address the root causes of this epidemic, instead hampering our ability to advance new medical treatments for addiction and advancing the flawed logic that we can incarcerate our way out of this crisis. Now, the war on drugs mentioned by Senator Wyden is blamed for sending millions of people addicted to drugs to jail, particularly Black Americans. According to the U.S. Sentencing Commission, in 2023, the average prison sentence for someone convicted of trafficking fentanyl-related drugs was over 7 years. Nearly 60% of those convicted were Black, 23% were Hispanic, and 16% were white. Again, the Halt Fentanyl Act appears poised to pass the House. The first vote on a very similar bill was 312 to 108. If passed, it heads to President Trump, who has promised to crack down on fentanyl. So it feels like a pretty safe bet that he would sign it into law. Stick with us. We're back right after this. Thousands of women across the country are suing the makers and marketers of chemical hair relaxers, claiming they cause them to suffer a number of health complications. In our new series, Damage Control, we're exploring the lack of transparency with some of the ingredients in these products. But there is one ingredient we do know has raised red flags: formaldehyde. Investigative reporter Morgan Young brings us the current timeline for a potential ban.
In 2023, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration introduced the idea of potentially banning chemical hair straightening products that contain formaldehyde from being sold and marketed in the United States. Formaldehyde is a known carcinogen, meaning it can increase a person's risk of getting cancer. It's commonly found in straightening products like Brazilian blowout products and keratin treatment products. It's also found in many chemical hair relaxers. The FDA actually released this information, stating it discourages consumers from buying products that contain formaldehyde. Right now, there are thousands of lawsuits pending across the country claiming that chemical hair relaxers are harmful, even products that do not have formaldehyde listed as an ingredient. And we know that the manufacturers of these products have denied all wrongdoing. But the FDA released this information in October, stating that even products that don't contain formaldehyde could contain chemicals that release it when heated, which we know is a key part of any visit to the salon. So how close is the FDA to actually issuing a national ban on formaldehyde? The agency has extended its timeline for issuing a rule on this multiple times. Keep in mind that a rule from the FDA always takes time, especially when there's a transition as a new presidential administration comes in. Currently, the FDA has March of 2025, this month, listed as a potential time period where we could see a proposed rule published to the Federal Register. Once that happens, there will be an opportunity for public commentary. Then the FDA will look at those viewpoints, make any necessary changes, and then publish a final rule with a date for when it would be effective and enforceable. Again, right now, the estimated timeline to actually publish the proposed rule is March, but again, we have seen this timeline pushed back multiple times before. In the meantime, we do know that the states of California and Maryland have already banned products with formaldehyde from being sold in their states, and we know that the state of Washington has already proposed a similar ban on those products. They made that decision earlier this year.
Well, that is the end of our show, folks. Thanks so much for watching. The good stuff is coming your way next. And don't forget, everyone has a story to tell. In the meantime, have a great Tuesday night. I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.